So there are a lot of policies that have been passed not only in Washington state, but in Oregon and California. And this happens a lot where, West Coast progressivism, it's like they all move as one. And one state tries something out, some new progressive revenue stream, for example, and the next state just can't wait to do it. And every time that they push out one of these new ideas or policies that's very progressive, the warning bells ring, and we all say, well, if you do that, this will happen. And they don't care, and they don't listen, and they don't actually care what the consequences are, and almost immediately those consequences come to bear. This segment is brought to you in partnership with our friends at Future 42. Turn your frustration into action at future42.org. Make sure you sign up for their newsletter to be alerted to opportunities to do just that. So I want to talk about 3 examples of this. The first one, I'm just going to get out of the way real quick. The gas, the carbon auctions. Can I just really rant really quickly about this? We've got states that are seeing gas prices right now 1 point something because of Donald Trump and energy independence. 1 point something. Can you imagine? I'd like to even see a 3. But we have states in this country, 1 point something. Record low gas prices across the country. Not in states that have dramatically increased your gas prices because of their climate agenda. And so Washington state, we're sitting out here on an island with California, and our gas prices are through the roof because of the Climate Commitment Act. And what do we say would happen if they pass the Climate Commitment Act? That your gas prices will get worse and worse and worse. It's designed to gradually increase gas prices. And that's exactly what it's doing. So that's just one of the 3 I wanted to really quickly get out of the way because I was seeing all the headlines across the country of low gas prices. And it drives me nuts because we had an opportunity to repeal the CCA, but because of lies and union money, people decided not to. So maybe we'll have that opportunity again. All right, the second thing I want to talk about is minimum wage. What was the warning? If you just jack up minimum wage, go for this. Initially, it was $15 an hour. Now it's $20 an hour. In Seattle, the minimum wage is going to be $21.30 per hour starting January 1st. And so they just keep going up. What was the warning? Well, there are going to be businesses that can't do that. And so what's going to happen? People are going to get fewer hours or people are going to get laid off, especially in these really low margin industries where they're not making money hand over fist. There's really nothing they can do short of, jacking up prices to be able to compensate for that. So you're going to put them in a difficult position. And so in your effort to help workers, you're going to hurt workers. They're going to lose their jobs or they're just going to get fewer hours. But the progressives didn't listen. And now what's happening? It's hurting workers. They're losing their jobs or they're just getting fewer hours. And ultimately they're making less money because of your wild increases in the minimum wage. California is an example of this. So in 2023, Gavin Newsom signed the so-called Fast Recovery Act, and it created a $20 minimum wage for fast food workers. But right now, according to Deseret News, that has led fast food restaurants in California and therefore fast food workers to struggle. And all the things that everybody predicted on the right and on the sane side would happen are happening. It says California Governor Gavin Newsom enacted the minimum wage law, raising the hourly rate from $16 to $20 an hour for fast food restaurants that have at least 60 locations in the U.S. The findings from Save Local Restaurants' independently commissioned study conducted by the Berkeley Research Institute were similar to those of the National Bureau of Economic Research. The study from February found that the wage increase law led to the loss of 10,700 jobs in just 1 year, from June 2023 to June 2024. That one law, the increase to $20 an hour from 16 for fast food workers, resulted in the loss of 10,700 jobs. It says the prices of menu items also increased by 14.5%. A majority of restaurants adjusted their pricing, but others reduced the number of hours employees work and laid off employees or consolidated positions. So 93% of fast food restaurants in California who were impacted by that policy and had to all of a sudden pay workers $4 more an hour, 93% ended up reducing the number of hours employees worked, and 70% laid off employees. It's not rocket science, like basic economics. And they'll still say, oh, it's a success, even if every single thing points in the direction of it being a failure and having the opposite of the intended impact. They don't care because they'll never admit they're wrong. Never admit you're wrong. So you could have people out of work, getting fewer hours, making less money, and they'll still say it's a win for workers. The Washington Policy Center also looked into this study. After a year of high minimum wages, a new report shows workers are working less and earning less. So the NBER study, which draws on data from the quarterly census of employment and wages, reveals a 2.7% employment drop in California's fast food industry compared to national trends from September 2023 to September 2024. It says adjusting for pre-law trajectories bumps that figure to 3.2%, underscoring how the wage hike disrupted an already fragile recovery in the sector. The Employment Policies Institute quantifies the human toll. Non-tipped restaurant workers forfeited up to 250 hours annually, equating to $4,000 in lost wages per employee, roughly 7 weeks of full-time pay. Yeah, so we're going to go out there, we're going to help workers and all of this, and we're going to stick it to the man and big businesses. And then those workers you were trying to help lost the equivalent of 7 weeks of full-time pay. Great job. Great job. All right. The third thing I want to talk about, this one, I don't think we will fully understand the impacts of it for probably 2 to 3 years, but it's going to be enormously consequential. So what did we say would happen if Washington state passed rent control? What did we say would happen? What did common sense dictate that if Washington state passed rent control would happen? Well, we said that builders are not going to build here. Builders are not going to build here. And that was in concert with a lot of other policies that were being passed in Olympia that made the cost of building a home or an apartment complex more cumbersome, more cost intensive, all of these things. And so you had the Building Industry Association of Washington down there screaming from high heaven, don't do this because it will make our housing crisis exponentially worse almost overnight. In fact, you had developers who showed up and testified to Democratic lawmakers, if you pass this, we're not going to build here. They didn't listen. They did it anyway. Well, what is happening now? The builders weren't lying. They're not building here. And that is going to have a ripple effect on our economy and on the taxpayers. This from our friends at Seattle Red. Home building crash costs Washington nearly $1 billion. Will you pay the bill? In it, our friend Jason Rantz writes, Washington state's newly released revenue forecast hints at a grim financial outlook. The state is seeing an $889 million drag on projected revenues, fueled in large part by a collapse in residential construction, according to the Building Industry Association of Washington. Residential permitting and building activity are plummeting to levels unseen since 2013, creating a domino effect across state tax revenues. And again, so look at this now. So they build their budgets, right, based on all these things, real estate excise tax, all the money that the state brings in when a builder comes in and builds a house or an apartment complex. So now they told them exactly what they would do. They said, we won't build here anymore. That's okay. We don't believe you, or we're going to call your bluff and we're going to pass these policies anyway. And they said, no, we weren't kidding. We're not going to build here anymore. So now about $1 billion is going to vanish from our economy. Where do you think that they're going to get that money from? Because they're not going to cut our budget. They've already shown that they're not willing to cut spending. They're going to get it from you. Whatever loss they suffer because of what rent control and other asinine policies are doing to home building and to builders and developers, they have to pass that loss. They have to recuperate that loss somewhere else. And it always comes back and falls on the backs of the working class. It always does, because all these times where businesses you can do business elsewhere. You can build homes elsewhere. You can build apartment complexes elsewhere. If you're a rich person like Jeff Bezos, you can live elsewhere. You can pick up and move. And so they target all these taxes toward people, businesses and developers and all these evil people and rich people. Well, they're not paying those taxes. They're leaving. So it leaves this massive deficit in our budget that they then come back to the only people who can't afford to leave, can't afford to move, don't have a business they can just pick up and move to another state. And so they're going to come to you and they're going to fill this gap with that. So all these things, like I don't feel bad for most Washingtonians at this point. I feel bad for those of you who understand these things and who didn't vote for these things. And we're also trying to wave a red flag to say, hey, don't do this. But the truth is that most voters support the politicians who push these policies. And so then ultimately, they have to pay for it. Unfortunately, the rest of us are just stuck paying for it too. But they send the progressives to Olympia. They elect the progressives in cities like Seattle that want a higher minimum wage. So they're really to blame, the voters, first and foremost, for policies that are leading fast food workers to make less money. They're going to be to blame when the housing crisis is at the point of collapse. They're to blame when it comes to the high cost of fuel here. And ultimately, of course, the media is to blame for not pointing all of this out before these policies are actually passed. Wild. That segment is brought to you in partnership with our friends at Future 42. Turn your frustration into action at future42.org.